All right. Hello, it's been a while. This is Nick. I'm a mentor for Team 2220 Blue Twilight, and today we're going to talk a little bit about gussets. Before we get there, I just want to thank everybody. I got a notification when I went to upload this video that we've passed 30,000 views on this channel, which is great. I made this stuff so people could learn from it, and it's really happy. It makes me happy to see people using it. Anyways, back to gussets. So, I recently had a conversation with somebody on the FRC Discord where they were like, where I commented on my gusset and was like, "This makes me a little sad," and they were like, "Why? Why does this make you sad?" And the reason it made me sad is that I have really particular personal preferences when it comes to making gussets. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time going through that today. And then on the course of that, I'm going to show you a few different ways that I use to make gussets, and the way that I teach my students to make gussets when we need to do that. So first, what is a gusset? If you're not familiar with it, it'll be really obvious once I start making them. They're just pieces of metal that hold things together, right? You got in FRC, you got tubes, and you got stuff that's got to connect tubes together and stuff that's got to go on tubes. And a lot of the flat metal pieces that we make for those are gussets. Without further ado, I'm going to go into this. So I've done a little bit of pre-work here to kind of set up what might be a semi-typical kind of like FRC A-frame type thing, right? So we've got some tubes, right? A Rev Max tube. Go check it out. Good stuff. I like hole pattern tubes. I don't like CNCing tubes. So, or having my kids spend a bunch of time CNCing tubes. So, really great stuff there. I have some tubes here, and I've got a sketch here that's basically like for me the first step to like figuring out what gussets I'm going to make, right? And some of these I guess technically aren't gussets, but we'll make them anyways because they're useful to kind of demonstrate some of the things along the way. And if I highlight that sketch, right, this is my gusset guides, right? These are the places that I'm going to want gussets, and I like to mark this out, right, because I like to think through things before I go and do them or make them, right? And yeah, so like in this case, right, this stuff is like patterned from this guy, which is what we would call our like primary sketch, and kind of defines like some of the core geometry here. So like we would have like a big arm up here going to another gusset, going to something down here. Anyways, gussets. So we get in here, we're going to start making a gusset. And for like this guy up here, this is what I would call a pretty simple gusset. So we're just going to take this circle, right? And we want to bracket here. So we're going to make a rectangular guy. And this will be a pretty good intro to like some of my basic gusset things. So, and I don't have, we're going to open up Karnak so that you guys can actually see what I'm doing. So 23, right? And this is where we kind of start introducing some of my key things, right? So one of the things, actually that's 0.02, right? One of the things that I always do, right, is I like to structure gussets so that you can have another gusset next to them. And what that means, right, is that when we have this guy, right, what if I wanted, and obviously we're not going to put a gusset on the top of this thing, right, but if I wanted another gusset here, right, if I have it at 0.23, like this, right, then I can safely just make another gusset that attaches there, right? 0.02, right? That make another gusset that attaches there, right? And not have to worry about it interfering with this, right? Which is great because in FRC, you oftentimes find yourself adding things to stuff. So you want to be able to safely just add another gusset right next to the other thing. whenever you want to do that. So in doing this little offset here, this 0.23 offset, right, means that even if you're a little bit off on assembly or even a little bit off on your manufacturing, you're going to be able to safely just throw in this extra gusset here. So that's why we do that. And we're going to just delete this stuff before we do that, right? So we got this. We're going to want, so we've taken this, this guy, and then we're going to want our holes. And in this case, I'm just going to take like these holes. So this is the use tool, good stuff. And those are the holes that we're going to make. And I'll make this gusset here. I typically use, 2220 typically uses 0.09 inch gussets. This is a, like, they're plenty strong. We use 6061, 0.09 inch gussets. You can use 1/8 inch. Sometimes it's nice for math, but I just find it useful. So I just prefer those. And so we have a gusset here, but I don't like sharp edges, so we're going to go in here. One of the things you might notice there, right, is that, and I'm going to use a parallel select there. You can also use, there's a great tool that when we get into talking about Julia's gusset feature script, we can look at, but yeah. So we've got this. We've got a rounded little gusset. This is more of just like a kind of a spacer plate, right? Like you might want to reinforce around this hole because this is like thin metal because the rev tube is really thin or something like that. But this is a kind of the very simplest kind of plate that you might make like that. Now let's go on to some other ones. And some of these will be, hopefully the rest of these, will be a little bit faster. And let's hide this tubes one because it's kind of getting in my way. All right, so one of the things that you'll also notice me doing, right, is like I tend to use a lot of this style of just making a center point rectangle and then dimensioning stuff. So one of the things that makes that easier, right, is looking at this and being like, okay, I just want is I like odd patterned holes, right? Because then you have a hole in the center that you can snap to that's really easy. So then we got this guy out here. This will be for like the bearing, and we'll use an offset here to go kind of around it. And then no need to make this too complicated. You can just kind of drag this out and make it tangent here. And then one of the things that I'll also typically do in a case like this, right, is we have this little overlap here. And I'll just use this trim tool and just get rid of that little bit of overlap there. And that'll just let it all extrude. And then we have to use these guys, and that is that. So we'll take that out, right? Again, 0.09. We've opened a new so that it's not adding it to that. And then we create a parallel edges selection. And there we are, right? We got that gusset. That gusset's really easy. We'll get down to here. So this kind of top gusset is going to be a little bit different. And the main way that it's going to be different is this will be one that we take advantage of mirrors on. So we're going to do some of the same things. And this is also a good intro to like how I do like angled stuff like this. Okay. So we're going to drag out our rectangles and then start doing some of those constraints, right? 2, 3. 0.02 from the edge. The edge constraint here is important, right? That's basically saving you from like if you have to make a perpendicular gusset, you don't want your gusset to extend off the edge. It's less important in this case because it's just not going to actually matter that much. But and then since this guy's basically the same thing. We can just make these all equal, and then that'll constrain that. This is kind of a fun one. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just break this horizontal constraint. And then I'm going to make this parallel. So, and that'll make this really nice and easy. 0.23, 0.02. And if this feels a little bit repetitive, it's because it is. And I wanted to kind of show you a few different ways that this gets used, that we would do something like this. And then I'll show you a few other ways that can sometimes save you some time and sometimes not. We're just going to grab all of these. In this case, right, you can also kind of do a selection, right? This is not necessarily ideal in some of these cases because sometimes you can run into cases where it like starts duplicating things or stuff like that. But that's all right. And then we're just going to mirror all that over to the other side. Extrude that, 0.09, new, and then add our constraints. And this guy, there we go, parallel constraints, right? We're all good. And you'll notice that by doing it that way, right, we've preserved that on all of these different axes. So we could add a gusset or something here. We could add one here. We could add one here. We could add one here, right? All of those things options are still open to us operating like this. All right, and then we're gonna go down here and do one more. And this one's gonna be a little bit different. So it's a similar thing, right? Where we delete this horizontal constraint, and then we make things parallel. We go 0.02 from the edge, and then we got that one. And then we're going to do the same thing down here. From the edge, 0.23. And then for this one, I'm going to do a little bit of a thing like this, right? Where I make this vertical, right? So I make sure that those are vertical, and that'll make sure that that's a straight edge. And we're going to have to this guy, 0.23. And then we'll draw up our lines like this. Okay. And then we can use all of our things like this. On something like this flat one where we can get a bunch of nice things, right? You don't need to, like, you can just do that. On this one, if we do that, so we do a use and we just drag it out around these things, you'll grab these like side ones, and you typically don't want those. So on this one, you'll typically just grab, like on one of these guys, you'll just grab these holes. And then I'm going to combine these two because I want to reuse this geometry because I don't feel like making you sit through making it again. So we're going to mirror that over to here. And this is another good case for why we make sure that we have as much symmetry as possible in a CAD file. And then we can do a few cheats. So make this horizontal to make that tab out. Because this is both 0.3, we can also make this width the same, right? And then we can do a few things up here, right? So we can do something like this. So that'll be there. This will be 0.23 here. And then we'll do a kind of a fun little thing here. So with this, what I can do is I can make sure that this line is the exact right length by doing that. So, and then that will be this guy, right, which kind of preserves all of those different little angles. And then this one can just be a little bit simpler. We just do this, give it a distance. We typically use 1/8 inch polycarb for like belly pan stuff, so I'll give it a like 0.23 off of there to leave a little bit extra clearance. All right, and then we just, again, use all these guys. And then, because we want these guys, want the bearing holes, we'll use those as well. All right. And that's how I'll do gussets whenever I'm making them manually. Okay, so we do this. Hello. Let's do our selection thing again. Parallel edges on this guy. Good stuff. Select parallel edges on this guy. Also good stuff. All right, and then we have all of those custom gussets, and that didn't take too long, right? That took like whatever 10 minutes to put together all of these gussets. So manual gussets shouldn't be a huge time sink. That being said, sometimes you want to go faster, and so for that we have Julia's Featurescripts, which can replace some of these but not others. So I'll typically use one of two of these if I'm going to use Julia's Featurescripts. I'll use this convex one or I'll use this select lines one. So I'll show you what convex looks like first. So convex will look something like this. We select all of the holes, and then we might select like a bearing hole here, right? And that'll give us a nice gusset there. And you notice I already have all this stuff set to offset 23 and all that fun stuff. That being said, if you look at this, right, it's not quite all the way up to the edge. Oftentimes that doesn't matter. But if it does matter, we can use move face on it to just make that a little bit bigger. So that's one thing. Unfortunately, this starts running into limitations when we want something like this. So I can do basically those same things. Right? I can grab all my things here, and sometimes it'll guess the holes, but not always. And unfortunately, that's not going to work out too well, right? The Gusset feature script is just not designed to do that. So something like this, you're probably going to need to do manually. Something like this, though, is perfect for it too, right? This kind of thing is perfect for it. We can just start grabbing. Oh, hello. I think it. Yeah. So we can grab all of our edges. And you'll notice it's kind of just drawing a line around the outside part of this, which may or may not be desirable to you. So sometimes you have to do a little bit of working with it. You can see it's starting to guess the holes for some of these, which is great. So like for something like this is great. Again, if we don't care about going all the way to the edge, which a lot of people don't. One of the other issues that we can run into with this, though, is are some of these gussets down here. So like on this corner one, we're going to run into the long edge problem, as I'd probably call it, is something like this, right? And that's that I can't preserve that 0.23 inch thing on a sharp corner like this, right? And that's something that I often really care about. So we can do a bunch of stuff like that. And then stuff like this extra hole here, that doesn't really matter that much because it's really easy to get rid of that. And I'll show you how to do that right now. We just delete face on these holes. And now we don't have those extra holes. Something like this is a little bit more complicated to fix, right? We want to do something like this. So take this out and make it diameter there. Use this, and then we can just extrude, remove that through all. And that's how we can preserve that if we want to do that with this. And then something like this is also a limit to the auto convex one, right? So because you can kind of see, right, this one doesn't really let you just say that, like, I don't want this zone easily. And also like getting this kind of angle thing up here and all that fun stuff. So I'm not going to totally go through making this one, just because I think you can see where that might have some problems. Now you can sometimes use like these bounding faces or something like that to do that, but that can be a little bit complicated, and there's a way easier way to do that. So, which I'm going to show you now, and that is going to be using the line gussets way of doing this, which is select lines, and you still have to select the holes, right? All the fun stuff. We'll grab a few of those. Okay, grab these guys, and then I can start grabbing some lines. So the lines, this one basically is going to follow those lines. So it's really easy to get kind of this kind of deal where you want it to be a little bit offset on one of the faces or something. That's very easy to add with this. So, and we're just gonna get all these guys good. And that's a pretty close approximation, right, of of what my manual gusset looked like, and it took us a little bit less time. And then similarly, right, like we can make some of those adjustments if we want to, right? So like this guy can go out a little bit if we want it to do that. We can delete those, some of those extra holes, that kind of thing. All right, so I'm not going to cover the other one because I don't really use it that much. Somebody probably really wants me to do that, but that is hopefully a pretty good introduction to kind of some of the tools that you would use to make gussets in FRC. I use all these tools, and I try to teach my kids to use them. And I hope you can understand like some of the pitfalls, especially like blocking off holes and stuff like that, and why you'd want to avoid doing that. All right. Thank you so much for watching. I know it's been a while. If you have any other content you want me to make, feel free to reach out. I do still like making videos. I just haven't made a whole lot of FRC ones lately. So hope your build season's going great. Good luck.